Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, continuing our deep dive into this USC program, heading into spring practice, fall camp in the 2024 season. Dale, we took a look at the offensive line 2 weeks ago, the defensive line last week. Now we are going to the offensive skill position. This could be a 30-minute episode. We'll try to keep it short so you guys don't have to listen to us talk 30 minutes. A ton of talent, a ton of young talent on this USC team. Really excited to get into this one. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys and a shout out, as always, to the USC fans. The amount of support you guys continue to show to the boys means the world. All the fight-ons in the comment section, absolutely love it. Cannot thank you guys enough for rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, would love to hear from you guys in terms of which players you think are breaking out in 2024. In fact, I would encourage you guys to drop your predictions in terms of leading rushers, leading receivers for this USC offense in 2024. Dill, I'm going to give you the T-box here, this USC offensive skill heading into 2024. How are we feeling about it?
Don't you feel a little bit like people are sleeping on this unit? And I get they lost a handful of really good players, but I feel like people forget how good Zachariah Branch was. They forget how good some of those younger wide receivers look in the bowl game. And frankly, a guy in Quentin Joyner who you love at running back, coming up, I think people kind of look back at what they lost and that overshadows what's coming in. But I think this unit, they got some really good young players.
As the recruiting nerd that I am, and having talked about a lot of those kids from the 2023 class coming out of high school, now them going into year two as kind of the guys in that USC room, I cannot wait to see what this unit looks like in 2024. And you said it right. You saw the flashes of what this unit can be in that bowl game against Louisville. And if they build on that heading into 2024, you have to be fired up. Now, Dill, we got to start with the quarterback position. Miller Moss, I think at the very least, entering into spring camp or spring practice, fall camp as that quarterback one, you saw what Miller Moss could do. And I think there's a lot of things to be excited about Miller Moss in terms of how he operates this USC offense. Not trying to do too much, just going through his reads, hitting guys accurately, on time, in stride, letting the receivers do a lot of the work. Very excited about Miller Moss, but an acquisition that I think has flown really under the radar was Jaden Maiava coming over from UNLV. You flipped the commitment from Georgia. Two reasons. One, really quality backup quarterback. This is a guy that won 9 games for a historically bad UNLV team as a redshirt freshman. Dill, he's a backup that can win you a lot of games, but more importantly, I think he's more than a backup. USC was looking for that young quarterback to kind of get to work and developing. When Malachi Nelson left, Jaden Maiava, checks all the boxes of what you want in that quarterback room. A guy with all the traits, needs a little bit more refinement. Couldn't think of a better spot for him to do it than at USC. Maybe not in 2024, but 2025, 2026, I think we might be hearing a lot of Jaden Maiava coming from UNLV.
Yeah, and he's not the impact now, but if you kind of look out a little further in just 2024, from a roster construction standpoint, they needed that type of guy. Losing Malachi Nelson, you wanted a guy coming up through the program who has a lot of promise. And again, what you're kind of mentioning, Jaden Maiava, what he did as a true freshman was really impressive. And again, you can't rule out him getting a crack at it. I don't know. Can you really rule out this year?
I think it's going to be I think Miller Moss is the guy. We saw enough of that, and we'll see if there's a quarterback conversation or competition that plays out. But again, I think the simple narrative is, a nice backup quarterback to add into that room, a guy that can win you a lot of games. Yes, 100% agree with that. What he can do in 2025 with the traits that he has and as he refines those traits, this is a guy with a ton of upside that I don't think people kind of respect enough from Jaden Maiava. So the quarterback room, I think you're really excited about. Lincoln Riley.
I'm not knocking Miller Moss when you suggest Jaden Maiava is going to compete. I think just when you have a quarterback that good, of course you're going to compete. You have to have competition in your room. And again, I'm with you. I think Miller Moss, the guy, I think the way he showed he can operate that offense, keep it on schedule, get the ball out on time. Again, what you said, not do too much, which is basically what everybody on USC was trying to do last year. And it wasn't just Caleb Williams. I'm not trying to put it on him. I think even Lincoln Riley as a play caller felt like he was almost doing too much. It's man, let's just run a more clean offense against Louisville, a really good defense that you just They weren't doing a ton of craziness. The ball was coming out on time, getting to where it needed to go, and letting the skill players work a little bit. So again, I think Miller Moss is the guy to operate this offense. But again, just from how good Jaden Mayava is, I think there will be an element of a battle, which is not a bad thing.
I'm really excited about Jaden Mayava and the traits that he brings. Now, going to the pass catchers, and I say pass catchers because it is an absolutely loaded room. You have a guy like Zachariah Branch, which I want to start with him because I think you look at game-changing kind of players. It does start with Zachariah Branch. What I'm most excited for in 2024 is him getting a more steady role in that offense. It seemed at times during that 2023 season, they knew how special Zachariah Branch was, especially with the football in his hands, and kind of tried to just force feed him, right? He's a guy that I think can run really good routes and create separation. Yes, you want to make sure you're getting a guy like Zachariah Branch's touches, but I'm excited for him to kind of come into this offense as kind of a true wide receiver as opposed to at times feeling like kind of a gadget guy that we're going to try to get the football to in different ways.
Because it's like when he came in, like the bells and whistles were off. It's like, oh, he's in, like key in on him. I'm kind of with you. Like, why don't you just let him be that starting wide receiver? Because he is that good. He can run those type of routes. But then I think it kind of what you were saying, it allows when you want to go to him, you can get him the ball, and it does throw teams off. It's not like, again, you see some of those moments where it's like when Michigan brings in Alex Orji, it's like, oh, what are they doing? It's like, well, we all know what they're doing. They're going to run the ball. With Zachariah Branch, it was like when he was in, you kind of knew they were going to go to some sort of swing or some sort of reverse. And again, I think that took a little bit of the sting off what he can do. I'm really excited for, like you, for him to just play wide receiver.
And at the end of the day, it was, I mean, you had Brendan Rice, Taj Washington, two guys that are going to be playing in the NFL. It was tough to get true freshmen their reps, but in that bowl game, you were able to. Though the next guy I want to talk about, and again, it's a laundry list of guys. I'm going to go to Mekhi Lemon, a guy that was kind of yo-yoing between defensive back, wide receiver, played wide receiver in the bowl game. And does he have the size that Deuce Robinson has? Does he have the acrobatic catches that Jacoby Lane has? No. Does he have Zachariah Branch's just electricity as a pass catcher, or at least with the football in his hands? No. Mekhi Lemon is probably the most polished wide receiver in this wide receiver. You go back 2 years to a guy like Jordan Addison. I'm not necessarily making that strict comp, but what made Jordan Addison so special in that USC offense? Smooth operator, knows how to run routes, knows how to create separation, knows how to kind of find the soft spots in the zone. And a guy like Mekhi Lemon, although maybe not the elite traits like a Zachariah Branch or Deuce Robinson, a guy that, if you're asking me who might be the leading receiver for USC in 2024, a lot of people are going to say Deuce Robinson, Zachariah Branch. Still, I might throw out the name Mekhi Lemon as being a focal point in that USC offense in 2024.
Yeah, and I think what stands out is, and I know we're kind of working off limited sample size, so you're kind of making some projections, but some of those plays against Louisville are like what you described. I mean, that ability to get that ball, he hit up the seam. I think he cut in a little bit, cut back out, but again, found it right in between the safety and the deep corner, and then right over the top of the linebacker was sinking. I mean, that's really savvy play. And then Miller Moss hitting him with that like perfect pass right up there. Like, that's the type of thing. Again, I think you missed a little bit with the USC last year because they were going to try hit home runs every play or do like wackiness with Caleb Williams. That simple play with really savvy wide receivers and a very accurate quarterback, that's what you're looking for. And again, I'm kind of with you. Mekhi Lemon, he does feel like, again, working off a limited sample size, but it feels like he's got the savvy in the trades to be able to work those sort of routes that I think you're kind of looking for.
At the end of the day, playing wide receiver is a separation game. That's what made Jordan Addison such a good wide receiver in 2022 for USC. And I think Mekhi Lemon can be that guy. He just knows how to get open. He knows how to separate from defensive backs. And then you kind of mix in a guy like Deuce Robinson. You talk about just an absolute mismatch, kind of matchup nightmare. A guy that you want to use in that jumbo slot, work the middle of the field. Deuce Robinson, I think, is going to take a massive step forward in 2024. You saw the traits, man. This is a guy that is just so hard to deal with. And then a guy like Jacoby Lane, as a contested catch guy, just throw him the football, let him use that big physical frame. He just has that it factor when that football is in the air. And I think what excites me the most is you start looking at this wide receiver room, as kind of a basketball court and saying, hey, we have a bunch of wide receivers, but more importantly, they're wide receivers that do different things, right? Zachariah Branch, get him the football in space, let him go to work. Mekhi Lemon, just going to get open, a very polished wide receiver who has elite movement skills. And then you have Deuce Robinson, Jacoby Lane, guys that can work vertically, make it play on the football when it's in the air. You have your contested catch guys. You have your yards after catch guys. You have your separators. USC's checking all the boxes in terms of what you want in a wide receiver room at the college level.
Because you're going to have to figure out how to play him. I mean, it's really hard to go man-to-man with Jacoby Lane and Deuce Robinson unless you have some real unique athletes out there who, again, are big and both can run. And then you obviously got guys like Zachariah Branch and Mekhi Lemon who feel like they should be able to work in and out of zones and be a little more savvy running those routes to the middle of the field. So kind of with you, I think this unit is shaping up to, again, you can kind of do everything with this group. You got two guys who are a little smaller, a little shiftier, a little bit more of that purebred wide receiver, maybe in the middle of the field. And then you got two monsters who, again, you mentioned Jacoby Lane with the ball in his hands. He's hard to deal with. And Deuce Robinson, you just see it's very hard to find a guy who can straight cover him because he's too big for most corners and too fast for most linebackers. I know that's cliche, but that's what he is.
Talking about a few other, and it's like you want to highlight those four guys who were brought in that 2023 class. I mean, Kyron Hudson, ball player. You bring in Jaden Richardson from the Division III level, another guy that you just kind of add to that room deal. I want to go to the tight end spot real quick and give a shout out to somebody that I don't know how much you'll see of him in 2024, but I think he's going to be a factor, and that's the true freshman Walter Matthews from the state of Georgia. Walter Matthews, 6'7", 245 pounds. You talk about scoring in the red zone, using guys with massive frames, massive catch radiuses. That's Walter Matthews. And again, USC is going to be able to move the football. Like, there's no question about that, but a huge story for USC is, can you score 7 when you're inside the 20? A guy with the frame that Walter Matthews have, he excites me in terms of what they might be able to do in the red zone, kind of hoping what Walter Matthews can do even bigger than a guy like Michael Trigg a couple of years ago for USC.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because you don't necessarily know who the tight end is going to be. I mean, McCree is solid. Carson's a solid tight end too, but I don't think you necessarily have that guy who's going to be keeping Matthews off the field. I mean, they're good players, but you do have a lot more upside with Matthews than either of the tight ends.
I agree. That's why I looked at that tight end room and said, I think Walter Matthews might be able to find the field relatively early in his career. Last position, we got to talk about the running back room. Marshawn Lloyd was awesome for USC. Austin Jones was solid for USC. You bring in a guy like Woody Marks, who you and I both know from watching a lot of SEC football was the guy in that Mississippi State offense. They didn't have many playmakers. Woody Marks was their playmaker. And if the good things were happening, they were trying to get Woody Marks the ball. Now, Woody Marks was playing significantly hurt that whole season, whether it was the knee, whether it was the ankle. You didn't even see, I don't think, 60% of Woody Marks for the duration of that Mississippi State season in 2023. Guy that in the SEC, over 1,800 yards rushing, over 1,200 yards receiving, a guy that can do it out of the backfield. What excites me the most is how Lincoln Riley might be using Woody Marks, not only as a very good running back, but a guy that can be a matchup nightmare for linebackers out of the backfield as well.
Yeah, and honestly, you talk about what his skill set is. He feels like kind of one of those culture guys that USC needed to bring in. I mean, one guy who, again, so all about the team, watching him just grind out with injuries, and he kind of knew he was the guy. If he came off the field, they're not going to go compete with that Arkansas team when they were in it, when it was close. What was it, like 6-7 or some ridiculously low score? But he knew if he wasn't in, then they didn't have a chance. And you just saw him like limping around, getting his carries, grinding it out, and doing what he had to do. And again, we've kind of talked about this. This is kind of one of those years for USC where they got to circle the wagons a little bit. They got to tighten up and be, I mean, like the shine's off the road or whatever, the road. I don't know what phrase I'm trying to use, but you kind of get what I'm saying. Like the shine's worn off a little bit. This is a big year for them to play with more toughness, do more of the things that I think, again, so talented last year. You felt like there were some moments where they weren't getting the most out of that talent, playing tough, playing together. He's the type of guy I think you bring in if you want to like be a grittier, tougher team. He's perfect for that.
I agree. I think from a culture standpoint, he's the guy you want in your locker room. And I'm going to give my last shout out to Quentin Joyner. And I think this is a guy that, only 18 carries in 2023 as a true freshman. Many of the USC fans who've been rocking with the fellas for a long time know I've been a huge fan of Quentin Joyner since he's been coming out of high school. 18 carries for 125 yards, averaged 7 yards per carry. He forced 10 missed tackles on 18 carries. For kind of a comparison, Austin Jones, this is not a knock on Austin Jones. This is more highlighting Quentin Joyner. Austin Jones had 84 carries and only forced 9 missed tackles. And so you're talking about a guy that can run the rock hard, can make people miss in open space. I'm going to ask you the question right now. I want you to give me the leading, and I would love to hear from the USC fans too. We played this game 12 months ago, Dill, and I said Taj Washington, the leading receiver for USC. Cash one for the boys. Dill, going into 2024, USC's leading receiver, leading rusher. What do you got for me?
I'm not going to overthink this. I think this is Zachariah Branch. I think he is so good. I think, again, we were all talking Heisman for the first couple weeks. I'm not sure they used him as well as they could have because, again, they didn't play him enough as just a wide receiver. I think it got very obvious what they were doing with him, and that hurt him. I think he's so electric. I think he's going to be unbelievable. I think he leads. I think he's going to have a lot of rushing yards. I think he's going to have a lot of receiving yards. I think he's going to be awesome for this team. And then probably my lean is Marks, just because I think he'll just get the bulk of the workload. But I'm not like Joyner's probably the more talented back, right? So he might.
As much as I want to go with Joyner, I have to go with Marks too. I think they brought Marks in for a reason to kind of be that guy. And a very similar conversation of Marshawn Lloyd coming to USC, where that Mississippi State team stunk out loud. They just, from a talent standpoint, they couldn't block other SEC front sevens. Woody Marks did what he can. I think you're going to see a lot more success for Woody Marks with this USC offense. My leading receiver, I'm going to go with Mekhi Lemon. And again, he's not the flash of Zachariah Branch. He's not the flash of Deuce Robinson or Jacoby Lane. I think he's going to be the Jordan Addison of this offense. I think he's going to be a separator. I think he's going to be the go-to guy. It's 3rd and 6. You need someone to get open, make a play. Mekhi Lemon's going to be the guy. I think I'm really interested. You could pick all 4 of these guys.
You're just like one of those people. You're just forgetting what you're forgetting how good he is. I haven't seen many guys touch the football look like him in forever. Maybe since Reggie Bush. I don't know. The guy's so electric.
Yeah, you could. Zachariah Branch, Jacoby Lane, Deuce Robinson, Mekhi Lemon. I wouldn't argue with all 4 of those picks. You have legitimately 4 difference makers in that pass catcher room. Going to be really fun to see how it pans out. Again, all of those guys only going into year 2. They flashed as freshmen. You're hoping they kind of hit the ground running in that 2024 year. Still, 18 minutes, not too bad. We were trying to keep it brief for you guys. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. Again, if you guys do enjoy enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.